Welcome, everyone, to WomenThink Global. And if you are in Southern California, please stay safe. My name is Nancy D. Solomon. I am the CEO and founder of WomenThink Global. And I want to talk to you today about leadership from a very different perspective. Many of you who know me know that I was a psychotherapist and trained that way for about 8 years before I became a coach. And I became a coach because things weren't moving fast enough. I saw what it did for me in my life and the changes I was able to make and the actions I was able to take. And so that's why I switched from one to the other. However, I take with me all my baggage in the positive and not so positive sense of the word regarding leadership, who I am in relation to it, and so on. So take that into consideration when you watch this or listen to it. And I'm really glad you're here. And I love your comments. So please do that in the comments section. And I promise I will get back to you. Keep it clean. We have two kinds of leadership. There's the kind of leadership within us, and there's the kind of leadership we bring out into the world. It's how, the one I want to talk to you is how we lead ourselves, how we have good communication, integrity, accountability, reliability, all those things that make us really good leaders, make us have productive, successful lives, whatever that means for you, and all the things that don't. So I work with teams. I work on teams with the emotional intelligence, with the, quote, soft skills, air quotes here, because anybody who has walked through the doors of corporate America knows that the soft skills are the hard skills. It is very, very seldom that a consultant is brought in, other than for technology or accounting, et cetera, to fix a, how shall I say it, to fix the technology side. I know it sounds like I'm talking in circles. I think I am. What I get phone calls on is I have a people problem, and the people problem is affecting our productivity, and the productivity is affecting our profits. Come in and fix my team. And the first thing I need to communicate is your team isn't broken. Your team isn't broken at all. Teams aren't broken. They are dysfunctional. Think about Uncle Harry at Thanksgiving. All right. And if your name's Harry, don't take offense to that. All right. We bring all our unprocessed trauma and wounds into our jobs. I'm going to leave that for a whole series I'm going to do starting next week. But for right now, suffice it to say that the level of self-awareness, the level of awareness of our own leadership is what determines how we lead on the outside, how we lead our families, how we lead in our relationships, how we lead with our friends, how we lead with our teams, how we lead up with our manager, how we lead our organization. It's all intertwined. And there is this misnomer carried over from the Jurassic period when I first went into corporate, and that's my son's input there, that you had to leave your personal lives behind. So I was literally, when we're talking, I don't know, the 70s, I was literally told, you don't bring your problems to work, Nancy. You go in there and you pretend like you don't have a personal life at all. Do you realize how insane that is? What crazy making that is? So you have a big fight with your partner this morning and you show up at work. It's one of the ones where you have to actually go to the office today, and you're supposed to pretend that didn't happen. And that's not going to affect your entire day, your productivity, your team. Of course it is, because who you are is how you lead. That's Solomonism number, I think it's 232. Who you are is how you lead. So all the debris that you walk into your job with, the stuff that you haven't processed for whatever reason, or you processed it but not all the way, your team inherits that. So I digress. So what I've discovered in working with teams is it's often not what you need to teach them as the manager, not what you need to teach them as the boss. It's the things that they need to unlearn. I'm going to say that again. What's more important when we're reinventing this next generation of leaders is that we teach them what they need to unlearn more than what they need to learn. So let me give you an example. You have a problem with trust on your team or in your relationship or anyway, where, because remember, I'm the person that said there's no separation, right? So you have a trust problem. It's what we call the trust quotient here at WomenThink. And what that means is you can only trust another person to the extent you trust yourself. You can only trust your team to the extent that you trust yourself. You can only trust your manager to the extent that you trust yourself. So the question is, do you need to teach that team member how to trust their team member more? Or do you need to have them unlearn everything they learned about trust? Do you need to teach them trust or to let go of mistrust? The same goes for safety. We talk a lot about psychological safety. Well, I don't know what the statistics are today, but I would say that if more than 50% of the American population will at some point in their lives experience depression, known fact, came out last week, all right, we have to assume that all of us did not grow up in functional families, highly functional families. We grew up in families where the dysfunction was a result of the generations before us. Again, I don't want to get too far off where I'm going with this. All right. So we talk about psychological safety. Well, you might have half the people on your team have never felt safe in their life. I know what that's like. I had a real problem with feeling safe and trusting because I learned very early on, you can't trust people. You can't trust adults very early. And so it took lots of therapy and lots of coaching for me to learn how to trust and how to unlearn mistrust. Yeah. So half of you listening trust people until they prove that they can't be trusted. And the other half, you have to prove to me that I can trust you first. I'm in that bucket. Okay. You prove to me that trustworthy. I don't know you. So we go into a team and we teach them what else is there. Okay, let's talk about this. I was the bad one in the family. My sister was the good one. I was the bad one. It doesn't matter why I think that, or none of that matters. And so what I learned, and it's only been in the last 3-4 years, is I don't have to unlearn being the bad one. I need to learn how to be the good one. If I was a good human being, what would I be doing? What would I be saying? How would I think? And by the way, I've always been a really good human being, in my opinion. I've made lots of mistakes. Like, we don't have enough time to discuss them, right? I've done lots of things I'm not proud of and I wouldn't want to see on the cover of the New York Times. But I'm talking now as an adult. There's the unlearning that I am the bad one, quotes, and there is the learning of the good one. There's the unlearning for you. Maybe you have people on your team that don't look ambitious. They're just doing the bare minimum. I know that none of you have that on your team. And so do they have to unlearn being unambitious, or do they have to learn what ambition looks like for them? Am I making sense? It could go to, I have a little note here, to any fear. Fear. You know, you called into your manager's office. Your manager says, close the door. Yeah. I don't know about you, but my heart just takes off. My heart just races right out of the room, and I am sure I'm screwed. I am sure I have done some major thing that is awful. And any minute now, I'm going to be fired, right? And don't tell me that you haven't had that. All of us have had that. I don't know that I haven't met a person who wasn't worried at some point that they would be fired, okay? Well, what if your manager called you in to tell you that somebody else needed to be let go, and guess what? You're the one to do that. What if your manager called you in to say, I didn't want to say this in front of the whole team, but when I was in Peru last month for 2 weeks, you carried the team. I want to really, really thank you. I want you to know I saw it. There's a couple of people on the team that I had to have the opposite conversation with, and I didn't want to shame them in any way. But I wanted you to know. The same goes for you. Your partner calls you in and says, we need to talk. But our learning has told us when somebody says we need to talk, we're in trouble. And we might be, but we might not be. So when you're working with your team this week, I want you to keep in mind, do they need to unlearn something that unbeknownst to them, they learned it? I mean, I never woke up some morning as a 3-year-old and said, I think I'm going to learn to mistrust adults. We don't do that. We're only born with 2 fears, and no, I have not been able to yet find the substantiation for this in the research. But the 2 fears are allegedly a fear of loud noises and a fear of falling. The other fears we learned. We learned to be afraid of putting our necks out. We learned to be afraid to speak up in a meeting. We learned to be afraid we wouldn't get the bonus. We learned these. It's all learned behavior. And the beauty of that is that you can unlearn it. Now, for those of you who think that, are still thinking, and I'm going to keep working on this with you, and you can always call me. My information to grab a spot on my calendar is in the description here. Connectwithnancy.com. Let's hop on a call. Let's have a conversation about what's going on with you or your team. Okay. So that's being said. When you go to unlearn something, you need to have a level of self-awareness. So I started to say, for those of you who think that the personal and the business are going to keep separated, we are moving into an era more and more now. And this last 4 years sort of rushed the whole process. All right. Just like ChatGPT took over the world in record time, the same is going to happen with this. The line between our personal and business self, our professional self, is blurring, and it's going to blur more. Why? Because what you're telling me you need more than anything right now is you need authenticity. You need trust. You're lonely as heck. All of us. And the only way to do that is to reach out to someone else, and not in business, but as another human. So people say to me all the time, oh, do you do B2B or B2C? Business to business or business to consumer for newbies. And it's like, no, I actually do human to human, H to H. Because that person sitting in your office, all of them, you have 10 people on your team, there is 10 personalities that have had mishaps and traumas and mistakes that make them who they are. It's part of their DNA. And so show them what they need to unlearn. They learn to scream. They learn to bang their fist. They learn to sulk if they didn't get a promotion. It's learned. To teach them something different while we all reinvent leadership. Again, Nancy Solomon, CEO and founder of WomenThink Global. I would love your comments. So please comment. Not only on this, but what would you like to hear about? What's a subject that maybe you need more learning on? All right. I don't know what ideas come to mind. Just put them in the chat, put them in the comments, and I'll take a look at them myself. All right. Have a great rest of the day. California friends, stay safe, please.